Hello buddy, it's Wyvern here with a bit of Total War Warhammer 2 Tourney gameplay once more. This time around it is from the second group stage of Shadow Online Gaming's YouTubers tournament, and we are squaring off on the plane of spiders against Dahvplays. And the matchup here is Skaven versus Norsca. Now going into this match I wanted to do something a little unconventional. Currently, the Skaven meta is definitely centered around Giselle spam and camping like a scrub and sitting on your bum and spamming summons and using Skaven slaves to zone your opponent away. And I wanted to try something offensive. I figured Dahv would be ready for that. I figured he would be prepared to resist or to deal with a big artillery ball. So I decided, you know what, let's take the fight to him. We're going to go aggressive. I'm an aggressive player. I'm not too fond of camping on my rear and letting my opponent dictate the pace of things. And so let's go aggressive. And that is what this entire build is sort of centered around. Plus, the other reason here is that the plane of spiders does have this very annoying line of trees here. And I figured the Dahv, once again, knowing that I'm probably going to go with an artillery builder, knowing that the Skaven standard is this artillery spam, would have deployed in these trees. And if he advances undercover here, he could get right up to here and then make a dash for my artillery. Now, granted, I could shift back this way, but at that point, I've got line of sight blockers interfering with my ability to shoot. And if Dahv crested over here, he could easily, with a quick force, engage before my Giselles and artillery can really position effectively. So I decided to go aggressive. And for my lord here, I'm actually going, once again, something a little bit awkward. We're going to be rolling with a Grey Seer of Plague. It's something you don't see all that often, but I personally am fond of this little bugger. I do like him standing there on his bell, screeching whatever curses or malicious banter you might have to say. We did bring a whole selection of spells. I wanted to have that Vigor debuff, really. I wanted that Plague Rash, and I wanted to be able to spam it. Of course, he does have a Bound Scorch, and the nice thing about the Wall of Unholy Sound and the Bell in general is that you do get all these buffs to your army. Unholy Clamor, plus 16 leadership and extra vigor, really helps keep your troops fresh, keeps them in the fight longer. Wall of Unholy Sound. The +5 melee attack, not necessarily the biggest thing. Usually you're relying more on shooting to do damage, but extra leadership is always good to keep the Skaven in the fight. Arcane Conduit means we can spam a whole bunch of spells, and we do want to spam those spells. We got Pestilent Breath to deal with squishy Norscan infantry, Bless with Filth to debuff them, and then Vermintide, of course, to get at least some summons in. And the idea is to try to burn down Dahv's Vigor as much as possible. Now for the rest of the army, it is a pretty wide mob. Obviously, Skaven slaves still do compose the majority of our width here. They're to soak up charges, block Dahv from getting in, provide support and sort of screening for the rat ogres against anti-large or things like skinwolves or units like that, and just being a decent zoning tool in general. However, in the core here, we do have 2 units of Stormmen with Sword and Board. These guys trade rather well into most Norscan infantry. Not great against Marauder champions or Marauder champions weapons, but those are something you don't see all that often from Norsca in this matchup. So Stormmen should perform relatively effectively, help hold the line, help anchor things if Dahv gets a sudden terror bomb. Besides that, we do have some Rat Ogres providing some additional mass and staying power to prevent Dahv from getting into my backline. A single unit of Doom Flayers to run over infantry, as well as a Doom Wheel to give us a single source of terror. Because while Norskins are not necessarily the worst leadership faction, they can definitely be terror routed, and if possible, I would like to do so. And of course, Doom Wheel is just a fairly tanky piece of work. It can definitely get some damage done against all sorts of targets. Finally, we do have quite a significant firing force. We do have Poison Wind Globes, 3 units of them in total, in fact. And these guys, they're short-ranged, but Norsca doesn't have much range anyway, so you can generally match Norsca's range effectively, and they will delete things like Mammoths. Now, one of the things I was worried about is that in case... Now, it's not likely that Norsca will bring Mammoths into against Skaven, but you never know. Sometimes people do off-meta things. This is a somewhat off-meta thing, so Mammoth could be off-meta too. So we have brought Rattling Guns here to provide suppression and a little bit of crowd control. And obviously with Blessed with Filth on top of that, we should hopefully be able to control big monsters, prevent them from running amok. Now, Dahv has, of course, deployed here in the back, and this is honestly a safe and pretty sane deployment. You don't want to get caught out by that artillery fire. For his lord, he is rolling with Throg. A little bit of an interesting choice, but perhaps figuring that whether he brings Wulfric, a chieftain, or Throg, he's going to get pounded with Giselles no matter what, so might as well bring something that regens and has more HP. I think that's a reasonable decision, to be honest. He does have Copious Vomit, which in my opinion is not worth bringing. Fight or Die, though, very strong, and Wintertooth Crown will keep his troops in the fight through thick and thin. He also does have Frostbite, which could potentially leave a unit trapped in a disastrous position. For his caster, he has decided to bring a Shaman Sorcerer of Death who has Fate of Buna, Spirit Leech, as well as Life Leeching, so potentially getting some early damage in, and in fact, we are going to see him start Spirit Leeching some of my Rat Ogres shortly. Now, not wanting to be pressured into attacking prematurely, he has brought these Marauder Horsemen to harass my flank here. They are chipping away at the Skaven Slate Spears, wasting their ammo in large part, but you know, if they're able to remove some of these peripheral troops, it will then open up my backline, make it much easier to get in there. For his front line, Dahv has brought a whole bunch of Marauder Spearmen, some normal Marauders. I don't believe there are any champions in here, but he does also have 2 Berserkers. Berserkers, pretty nasty piece of work. They can definitely cleave through cheap Skaven trash very quickly. And if they're able to breach through into the back line, or if they get some support, if had Dahv, for example, brought Soul Blight, they could definitely cleave through even Stormwind pretty well. Over here on the flank, we do have a Skinwolf Werkin fighting alongside the Maws of Savagery, which is a pretty nasty anti-large force, meant most likely to counter Doom Flares and that sort of stuff. He's got Ruinous Flesh, providing extra missile-resistant armor, which will, of course, buff these guys if they're close enough as well, making them relatively tanky to missile pressure. Puts him up to, what is it, 31% resistance, so definitely not terrible against missile play. And that extra armor, it can help, especially if they're all blobbed together. Finally, here in the back, we do have the Miststalkers, and these are deployed way in the front, most likely to flank artillery, had I deployed on that hill, which I did not because I didn't bring artillery. In the meantime, the Marauder Horsemen here harassing my Skaven slaves and buckling their leadership pretty badly. Definitely not what I want to be seeing in life. Spirit Leech going down my Rat Ogres, doing quite a bit of chip damage, though not sniping any models, fortunately. But Dahv definitely getting that encirclement going. He actually gets a nice little charge in here with the horsemen. They do get in there, but out come the Poison Wind Globes, and they're going to deter these horsemen from going too far. Granted, they don't really get much killing yet because they just aren't able to hit. Well, yeah, they take a model or two there. But Dahv is able to juke out and definitely has, well, I say he definitely has one, but honestly, this is what, like 50 gold worth of units? Not the end of the world. He might have lost that in just this horseman and the HP there. And the Skaven slaves will rally and reform ranks. In the meantime, all my Rat Ogres are being shifted over this way. I actually don't know where Dahv's army is right now. The only unit I have seen so far is the Shaman Sorcerer of Death and the 2 horsemen, so I'm not really sure about where everything is. Shortly, we will be spotting some of these units, but until then, we haven't seen them. Now, it is worth mentioning, I know Dahv practice, or I believe Dahv practices building against Turn beforehand, because I have seen it after we fought our battle. Turn actually put up a match where he played Skaven against Dahv's Norskins, and I feel like that was probably the practice run here. And these Miststalkers, definitely pretty nasty against artillery play, and you can see they're sneaking up now, looking to get a flank. But these poor Marauder Horsemen, we swing around, out come the rattling guns, snaring these guys, slowing them to 58 speed so they can't escape, and the Poison Wind Globes are pounding them into dust. You can see down by a third of their models almost immediately, and just forced to back the hell away. We are not giving these guys a chance. Now, Fate of Buna over here going down on my Stormmen, definitely brutal because I don't have too many elite troops. Spirit Leech plus Fate of Buna, obviously Dahv doesn't have, say, Arcane Conduit or something to generate huge winds of magic, but still, it's a pain. Over here, Throg does decide to get a little cheeky, so we are going to wail on him a little bit with our Rattling Fire, but look at that damage. Stormmen already down by almost half their HP, so definitely not where we want to be in life, though the Rattlings are definitely teaching Throg a lesson and making back the hell away. Now, I do spot the Dahv's army here, and we are going to move in to engage, diving in with the Stormmen, swinging them wide, and just going to start swinging the Skaven slaves over there as well. And seeing the tide of very angry doggos and wolves there, we are actually going to start shifting our Poison Wind Globes to make an engagement here as well. And this is not where these wolves want to be. Their physical resist is literally irrelevant against the magic damage on the Poison Wind Globes. Granted, they're going to break my Stormmen despite Unholy Clamor going down just a little bit too late. But you can see the damage there. Going in, it's an okay chunk. If they had stuck in, that would have been absolutely disastrous. And we are going to drop a Summon of Clan Rats, so that's going to be disrupting Dahv there. Now, unfortunately, big misplay here on my part is leaving the Brazier of Plague in this fight. He really needs to be running way sooner. His speed is now down to 29. I believe he's been clipped by Frostbite, which is definitely not what we want in life. So he's being forced to retreat. In the meantime, Dahv has sprung this trap, and he's swinging rather wide here, getting that interception. But we do have all these Skaven slaves shifting around. Unfortunately, Skaven weapons teams are pretty nippy. 34 speed isn't as fast as Marauders, Right now they're being debuffed by the passive, but normally they do have 35 speed, so they are technically fast enough to catch poison wind globes, but they won't be able to do so right now. We're going to be able to escape and get troops in the fray. The rat ogres are diving in, providing that mass. Skaven slaves shifting north, and Dahv is still flanking very wide with these Fimir Miststalkers, and he really needs them in the fight right here. So that deployment, the fact that we push so aggressively, has kind of forced Dahv's hand here and put him in a position where he probably doesn't want to be. Now over here, Throg running for dear life because he's getting pounded into oblivion. Wintertooth Crown does go down, keeping these troops in the fray, or at least some of them. But now the tide of flesh is pouring in, and Skaven flesh, there's a lot of it. We are just cramming in there. Skaven slaves intercepting, getting a charge in there with the Gracier of Plague, getting a clan rat summon, and preventing Dahv from pushing through. And now the Maws of Savagery just dying here. Terror kicking in because there's a Doomwheel running amok. The Doomwheel's actually back here with the Doomflares just running through this infantry, tying them down. Werkin's still in good shape, but Throg is now down to half. These Maws of Savagery are almost deleted. Now, granted, the Marauder Horsemen here are going to attempt to commit, but keep in mind, 70 armor on the Rattling Guns, 100 on the Poison Wind Globes. Breaking that's tough. It's not easy. And in the meantime, the rat ogres are going to swing around and start interdicting things. And we do have this constant stream of rats rallying in the distance who are able to pour back in. Now, Dahv had to move all of his Miststalkers out here, but he hasn't collapsed on me yet. So Miststalkers who really could be making a big difference here potentially are not where they need to be. Gracier of Plague here running for dear life from Throg because this would put an end to my game very quickly. If I get caught or if I get Spirit Leech, this is going to be all over. But Throg now finds himself in a precarious position and he is suffering for it as a hail of Poison Wind Globes just pounding away at his HP. He's trying to escape here. The Doomwheel is actually pursuing him. Is going to cause terror on Throg. So Throg, despite being an ugly mug, is susceptible to terror. He's going to rout there. Maws of Savagery here completely demolished, down to just 6 models and very little HP. Throg take down to 2,000. And Dahv is really not able to shut me down right now. We've got this whole rallying blob of Skaven, which I should have had pouring in much, much sooner. The Rat Ogres helped shore things up alongside the Stormwind, and these Marauders are not going to be able to kill me quick. That's one of the big problems with them. Rattling Guns now unloading at point blank. Marauders against 100 armor are not going to do great. And look at the Skin Wolf Werkin go down. He's having a horrible day. Poor guy. Like, down to 1,500 HP, just wilting under fire, and he's a goner. In the meantime, we're going to dive back in with our Gracier Plague, Unholy Clamor going down, keeping leadership high, and keeping the moral of our ratties in good shape. Dahv's army buckling now. The Miststalkers have finally begun moving, trying to close the distance, but at this point, it's just too little too late, really. Its balance of power is not hugely in my favor, probably because my Lord is in such bad shape. Like, right now, one cast of Spirit Leech would be probably the end of this guy, but granted, he does have magic resist, so maybe not. He does have like 25%, I believe, magic resist, which isn't terrible. But Dahv does try to get his Miststalkers in there, but it's too little too late. The Rat Ogres intercept. There's 3 Rat Ogres. Granted, they're all pounded down, but there's still 3 of them. Three units with 20 plus models, 23 models between them. So they're going to tie these guys down. Shaman trying to get in there and help, but just not happening. Throg tries to get in here and just wilts under fire, just going down to Troll King, buckling under fire. And in dishonorable fashion, the Rats are taking the win here. Close victory for the Skaven. So obviously a big misplan. We talked about this with Dahv after the battle. It was definitely keeping the Miststalkers out of the fight for way too long. They needed to be committed much sooner. That said, I do think the Skaven build here did have the advantage of just a lot of point defense. It was a very melee-heavy build, which in many ways countered what Dahv had here. Certainly, he did have some large units to help stop, say, the Doom Flayers and the Doom Wheels, but these 2 units were able to sort of swing that tide against the infantry. While at the same time, the Rat Ogres pinned these big monsters, and our guns and Poison Wind Globes destroyed the Maws of Savagery. They ultimately would have destroyed the Miststalkers. They destroyed Throg. They destroyed the Werkin. None of these guys were really able to get much done. My biggest misplay by far was allowing my Gracier Plague to get caught out by Throg as well as the Werkin. That was just a terrible play on my part, and I shouldn't have let that happen. Definitely the Plague passive was helping a lot, debuffing Dahv's army a whole bunch. Ultimately, I do think this is a relatively competitive build, actually. It's one of those things where you catch your opponent by surprise. I'm pretty sure Dahv was expecting a much campier build, and this was not a campy build. This was a very aggressive composition. That's definitely well played. I think the game could have easily gone in his favor. In his favor, if just a few things had gone down a little differently. Perhaps not using that Fate of Buna on the Stormrumen, using it on the Grey Seer instead, trying to whittle him down. That might have gotten some better results. Definitely, if the Miststalkers had been in there, that could have been a big game changer, potentially inducing terror routes early on. When I kind of had Skaven slaves out of position, and they needed to be in the fight, but they weren't because, well, they were out of position. So in that sort of situation, when the Skaven slaves weren't really preventing Dahv from getting into my backline, I think that he could have, if the Miststalkers were there, that could have potentially induced a terror out. I'm not entirely sure, but it might have. Obviously, with Unholy Clamor and the Wall of Sound, it's difficult to tell sometimes, just because you've got so many leadership buffs for once as Skaven, keeping your troops in the fight. But you never know. Ultimately, though, well played to Dahv. Be sure to check out his channel, guys. He's got a lot of great content. Always uploading new multiplayer videos, as well as just informative stuff, both tutorial videos as well as covering new patches and that sort of thing. Great guy, great player, has a lot of good content. Be sure to check him out. Also, be sure to check out Shadow Online Gaming's channel. He's been kind enough to host this tournament. I will be leaving a link to both of their channels down in the description below, so be sure to check them out and say hi for me. I do hope you guys enjoyed this video. There's definitely still some more to go in this tourney scene, and I will see you all in the next one. Bye for now.